it's definitely very clear when you see the things that came out of Annapolis. It's, if you're a staunch Republican, you're disgusted with Annapolis right now. Really, I mean, you are. But yet,
And
if
I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted.
are you? I love that you put that out there. Let's make sure that's going to be our clip.
That's the lead in.
That's our lead in.
And after last week,
yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. We are your concerned citizens, empowering the people, igniting change. I'm going to go around the horn and introduce our Southern Maryland, St. Mary's County concerned citizens. But we're going to go around the horn, starting with you, Mr. Russell.
All right. Yeah. Well, I am Brandon Russell. I am a local St. Mary's County resident, concerned citizen, follow local government, and make sure that I try to keep people informed on what's happening. Ran for county commissioner last year, and now I'm doing this. And we are having a great time hashing this stuff out, right?
Absolutely.
That's right. So you know what? This is the time when I bring out the title, right? I wasn't going to save it for later, but we've affectionately crowning, right? We're affectionately crowning Brandon the Southern Maryland Information Czar.
Yes, sir.
Right? That's what it is. He's a czar,
right? That is right.
I'm glad you didn't say that to the end, because I mean, it would have slipped out. Somebody else would have called him that.
I know. I mean, that was the perfect timing for it. I just couldn't let it go. But my name's Chris Hill. I'm a realtor in Southern Maryland, and I'm also a concerned citizen. That's me.
Roger that. My name is BJ Hall. I am also a concerned citizen, and I want to say something about running for office, but I'm tired of talking about that at this point. It seems like such a distant past. It's like it happened so long ago, even though it keeps popping up in my Facebook memories.
Ever forward. What's next?
So, question. The getting to know you question of the day. Do you have any irrational fears? What is an irrational fear that you have, Mr. Russell?
This is a very tough question.
All right, let me start you off.
All right. Yeah. I'm blanking out.
I am unusually afraid of realistic looking statues.
Wow.
I cannot stand next to a statue that looks like an animal, a human, any type of gargoyle that looked like it could just move. Ghostbusters messed me up. Hold on one
second. I'm putting down my Christmas list for BJ realistic statue. Got it.
I'm telling you, you remember Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
When they had the gatekeeper and the keymaster and the gargoyles pop down.
Right?
Oh my goodness. Every time I'm standing next to a statue, I just feel like it's about to reach out and touch me.
Wow, that's hard to beat.
Yeah, that is hard to beat. We should have saved that for last.
I don't think I have irrational fears. I had a fear of a dumb fear of a helicopter blade chasing me in my dreams. It happened for years. I had this same dream that a helicopter crashed and the helicopter blade was chasing me. So I guess that's an irrational fear, right?
Now we have to look that up in somebody's dream dictionary to
see what it is.
Like,
yeah,
see what does that really mean?
That's funny,
right? Yeah. So for myself, I guess I probably have to say, I don't know that it applies much these days, but at one time when I was in my teens, I had a fear of heights for really no reason. I think it was mostly just because I hadn't been anywhere like, the top of the Empire State Building or something like that to have the experience. But even still today, sometimes, if I'm doing something like that or like flying, depending on what's going on, if there's turbulence or something, then I go through in my head like, oh my God, we're all going to die. Where's the life vest? And, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's probably the the best thing I can come up with on that subject: irrational fear of heights.
See, I just knew somebody was gonna say something crazy like I'm afraid of like dolls or scarecrows or I guess I was hoping somebody had something to make me feel better about the whole statue thing.
I got it. I'm afraid. This will get us started. I'm afraid of our state government enacting some crazy legislation, and that's not irrational.
I was about to say that's not irrational.
Right.
All right. Well, speaking of state government, Sine Die. We had that happen about a week ago. Unfortunately, I had to go up to Annapolis by myself.
Oh, I let him down.
By myself. We couldn't have like was it a concerned offsite?
I
But
know. I was a little under the weather.
It was an awesome time. It was really cool to see a lot of the people who are working to make change, not only the elected officials, but the people who work for them, some of the lobbyists, some of the activists, all in the same place, just celebrating the end of 90 days of hard work. And it was like as much as we talk about some of the decisions that they make, I mean, they put in a lot of work.
They do
in those 90 days, and so I mean, I think we need to give them a round of applause.
Yeah,
Just
no
like,
doubt.
shout out to them for little pay.
I don't agree with everything they did, but it's a lot of work what they did. So
absolutely.
It is.
So they had the 1,699 bills from the House.
They couldn't get one more.
I know, right? 1,700 would have looked so much better.
I mean, what's one more? I mean,
right.
like
actually, you know what? It's kind of like gas prices, right? So it's like, $99, $16.99. We got a discount. but plus the taxes that they're gonna add on there, it's probably like 1,708.
Well, it's kind of like that that last bill. You sent me that article about there was a bill on Sine Die, like the last minute somebody's like running the bill in the door. That could have been 1,700. I'm telling you,
it could have been. It could have been. And with the Senate going 1365, I mean, that's just a lot of work. What I've never done is really watch the process of how they become enacted, because right now we only have about 93 enacted. But I mean, there's a lot more.
Only 93 new rules this year.
There will be a lot more, because there were a lot more that were approved by both houses.
Good point. Those 93 bills probably generate 9,300 new rules.
Probably.
Yeah.
But the thing that troubled me in those 93, I didn't see our bonds. So I'm like, hey, I understand that there's a priority to this, but can you get to our bond bill, please?
Yeah. Right.
But looking at the session, I mean, they covered a lot of topics. A couple of them we've probably beat to death. And of course, we had a lot of legislation for one of the topics of the day around, well, not a lot, but some legislation around abortion. They had cannabis, the clean truck bill. I think what they did
for me,
they heard you
sponsored by Chris Hill.
Oh,
it was like, okay, leaf blowers were not, that was not good enough. It was like, so let's do it with trucks. We got trucks.
I think actually Chris lobbied at the last minute to put an amendment on that bill that with every clean truck you buy, you get a clean leaf blower too.
Yeah, that's right. So. It was. What's crazy about that is it still plagues me in my brain. I start thinking about those leaf blowers, and I'm gonna talk about it for a second. Like they're gonna do away with all the gas leaf blowers. How many batteries are they gonna buy? Like, I mean, like there's got to be you got to have a spare. You can't just. Are they gonna sit around and wait for it to charge? They're gonna fire up the gas generator to charge the battery. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You bring up a good question. And I'm sure that it was the economic impact was done, and it's a minimal cost to the state and the taxpayer overall.
Yes,
you plug it into the cigarette lighter in your green truck.
Right.
Oh man, we just get long extension cords and everybody's out there just plugged in.
Mm.
We had a couple of gun bills. I really want to take an opportunity, not right now, but I think we really need to have a conversation that's specifically focused on some of the gun law, because that's one of the topics that people, well, that our country really needs to have, because a lot of, we always say common sense gun laws, but I don't think that people with opposing um, opinions sit down a lot and have these conversations, because
Right.
usually people go back to their little silos and
Right.
and preach to the
Mhm.
choir. It's like, oh yeah, we need to not do anything, or we need to do way too much. And it was like, but most of us kind of live in between the 20s,
Yeah.
and I think finding some type of regulation, or just understanding um, how to approach the issue. I think a lot of us probably have similar ideas.
This last one though, this where private property owners could control whether firearms are being bought onto their private property.
Mhm.
That we had a little bit of a realtor discussion about that recently, because as a realtor, sometimes you go into properties unknowing
Mm.
what you're going to encounter and who you're going to encounter, and so there's some definite questions about how those bills work too.
You out there showing houses packing?
I can, but no, it's and honestly, real quick story, man. I showed a house. It's been 12 years ago. I went upstairs in the house, and the attic staircase was down, and I turned around, and a guy came running at me from out of the attic staircase straight at me down the hallway, and thank God he turned right and ran out down the stairs and out the front door, and I about
Wow.
passed out. But
Shoot, thank God you didn't have a gun, because you might have shot him.
well, you know what? Thank God that he didn't. Yeah, right. You're right. It would have been probably been safer for me if I had. Who
No,
knows?
no, no. That's got to be a scary situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of unknown. I never even considered the fact that you can run into some issues, considering that you show a lot of vacant homes.
Yeah.
Mm.
A lot of
So
squatters and things of the sort. And you may not be at risk, but you could be. And that's it.
Yeah.
And
You just
honestly,
never know.
and honestly, realtors have a real there's a history of many realtors being attacked and actually killed. So it's not cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
really,
Yeah. There's a whole lobby for someone that happened to in Texas.
oh wow,
Yeah, it's sad, but I mean that's what I'm saying. So common sense is
not so common.
yeah, I know. It's subjective, isn't it? Isn't
Unfortunately.
common sense
Yeah.
subjective now? Isn't that what it is?
Roger that.
So
Yeah.
anyway, sorry.
And just
Yeah.
on the gun subject too, real quick, the local bill, or not, it wasn't our bill, but for Jalen Willie, SB 858, I think it was,
Yeah,
that passed as
Yeah.
well.
it did. No, but that one we talked about that.
Yeah.
That was not I
I
didn't
think
it
that
was-
was the one. That was one of the ones with the unfortunate name.
yeah,
Yeah, where the description didn't really go with
right.
what it was trying to do. But yeah, so it was good to see. I know Jalen's mom has put a lot of work into that, and
Yeah.
I'm happy about the piece for sure that has the mental health
Mental health.
gun,
Yeah, we talked about that.
education.
That's really
We
good,
talked
yeah.
about that. So hopefully that produces some really strong results.
On another
Yeah.
on another note, speaking of how words matter, did you see that the bird killing bill passed?
Are you talking about offshore?
Yeah, right.
So hold up. So let me tell you, what you need to do is go read up on what's happening in Jersey, because apparently they kill whales. So it's
Mm,
Oh,
yeah.
here we go.
no, I'm
Well,
just saying. I was having this conversation earlier this week, and of course, I mean, I'm pro, and I I'm a construction guy, so really, I'm not even really thinking about. I haven't really considered all of the impacts of it. I just like building stuff. And so when I see cool construction projects, I'm like, oh, that would be awesome. How much will it? How many jobs? I'm like, oh, we need those here. And so,
Mm.
and then when you think about another source of energy, I kind of get excited about that as well because I think we need a diverse supply of energy. So, um,
No, I hear you, but BJ, how much is the life of a whale?
It
How
depends
much?
on it depends on how much my electric bill is costing. It was like it's like it's like, man, in the summertime,
Oh,
I really care about the wells because my electric bill is low. I have solar
that's
panels.
awful.
But in the winter time, I mean,
He's trying to be warm.
Yeah. Here's a novel concept. Maybe we don't have as many electric vehicles and electric things and don't need as much electricity. How's that idea?
well, that part. I
We got
really
all these devices that use less and less electricity, but yet we're using more and more electricity.
I really have to pass along this Thomas Sowell book, and he talks about some of um the nuances when you start talking about needs and true
Mm.
demand. It's like, oh man, I was like, it's a really good conversation. That's not for this show, but it's a book that I've gone back to revisit, and I'm like, oh, we need to talk about that one of these days. Anyway, yeah, everybody wants to talk about economists right before we talk about budget stuff. All right. Yeah, so I mean, they covered a lot of things, like we said, but more importantly, they got we're at the end of the session, and now it's time for us to really start gearing up for next year. People think that a lot of the work happens right there in the 90 days, but the planning starts
Yeah,
Yeah.
now.
it already did. It already
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Actually, we're going to have some guests on in some of the next upcoming episodes, so that's kind of going to be exciting, and hopefully we can get some of our delegates on, which I'm pretty sure we can, and have some conversations with them about how they feel it went this past year too. I think that, and then that'll also, what are the new things for next year that are coming out, or
Roger
what
that.
are the it's funny how a lot of the things that didn't make it this year are going to be next year's items
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. You know what might be kind of cool. Um, I think we should put some surveys together to ask people how they think each of our elected officials did. And I think
No.
it would be kind of cool if we graded our officials based off of the work that they did for us as well.
I think I mean, that's a good idea. And I
Yeah.
want, how do you want to do it? You want to do it like topic by topic? Like, we could actually break it down. Like, how do they think they did on this? How do you think but see, then you're just getting other people's opinions. So,
Well, I mean, we can develop criteria because
yeah,
that's we can figure out how to make it work.
yeah,
And we talk
Yeah.
about effectiveness, activeness. So, I
yeah.
mean, there's a way to do it, and I think that it'd be cool to have each of them on and be like, hey, so we graded you a C.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Do
Well,
better.
I said this earlier when we were talking, and that is before we came on, and that is like, it's going to be interesting because Maryland has become a very progressive state,
Mm.
and
Progressive.
progressive, right? We'll call it that. And then, and you're going to have such differing opinions from the left and the right in Annapolis, especially since there's so little right in Annapolis. It's going to be interesting to hear how that works.
That was a loaded statement.
Double entendre there. I like that.
Okay, I didn't pick up on that.
Sure. Okay.
No, but I mean, it's obvious that you've got a supermajority in Annapolis
Yeah.
of Democrats, and they're going to push through an agenda that's very progressive or liberal minded, if you will, right? And they did. Like, there's no question about it this year. They definitely did that. You've got cannabis, you've got clean energy, you've got gender affirming items. This is a progressive agenda if there ever was one.
Yeah. I think it is too.
Yeah. I would be fascinated to see if the public is on board as much across the state as Annapolis voted. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, I would be interested in that.
It's probably depends on the topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking too. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, enough of that. But
No, I think you're right though. I think Maryland is definitely a strong blue state, but is getting more progressive, just as red states are getting more conservative. So I think a lot of this back and forth about some of these issues, which states are passing stuff to be more liberal and which ones are passing stuff to be more conservative, I think comes down to that national push pull.
Mhm.
Um, and that's unfortunate because, especially, I'm sure BJ, you saw a lot of this too last year when you were running. But unfortunately, that stuff trickles into local politics in a way
yeah,
that it should not, because
Yes.
a lot of these issues that we're talking about on this list are not necessarily things that are going to affect a wide swath of people on their day-to-day life.
Correct.
Um, so I always find it interesting, where some subjects are basically, oh, this is our response to what, a
yeah.
neighboring state is doing the opposite of, or what have you.
I keep saying there needs to be a purple party. I'm sorry. There has to be a middle ground on all of this stuff. There has to
Yeah.
be.
Well, see, the problem that you have is nobody's willing to elect people from another party, and
Yeah.
so if you want to
Well,
have
you
a
can't.
realistic
You're
run,
restricted to do that, really. I mean, let's think about it. How
no,
many
you're not.
independents get
No,
In the
no, you're not.
primary.
in the primary, right?
You're not. You're not. You're not restricted.
Yeah,
You
we
it's
can
we've had
hard
change
to
we've
get
had
somebody like that. It's hard to get somebody in any state to be an independent that actually can carry enough votes to do it, because it's just
Clark.
really, really
Clark could.
difficult.
I think Clark. We had an opportunity with Clark,
I agree.
and
I
I
agree.
think not that I necessarily needed him to win or I was rooting for him, but it was just one of those things where I think that would have been an opportunity for us to truly say, hey, we can actually push for an independent. Well, it's realistic to have an independent candidate because
Right.
now nobody's going to really run as an unaffiliated candidate at this point, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And most of us don't align fully with these
No, you're right.
the
Most of us
parties.
don't, but I mean, it is. It's definitely very clear when you see the things that came out of Annapolis. It's if you're a staunch Republican, you're disgusted with Annapolis right now. Really, you know what I mean? You are. But yet,
And
if
I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted.
are you, I love that you put that out there. Let's make sure that's going to be our clip.
That's the lead
Short.
in.
That's our
Yeah.
lead in.
And after last week,
Yeah, that's it.
yep.
But
Mhm.
I mean, we've got a long way to go, and I just think we're going to see the results of these. I hate to use this word, but forgive me for this word, but more radical policies. I'm going to call it that because they are a little radical. I hate to use that word, but we're going to see the results of those in the next few years. We're going to see what the implications of these things are.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a real effect. I mean, taxes are going to go up. I do believe that. I think we're going to be paying more taxes. There's such a housing problem right now. That's my real estate world, right? We have 120,000 units short in Maryland right now. It's probably more than that, but just 3 years ago it was like 70,000.
Mm.
So we're gonna have, if they don't make some changes soon, we're gonna have some real problems for people. But
Yeah.
anyway, and then the next issue we're talking about really fits in with that
I was just
perfectly.
about to say, yeah. Yeah.
It's like transition. Now let's bring it on down to St. Mary's County. Um, we've started having a conversation about our budget in particular, and there are a couple of things that are happening that will impact our bottom lines when we started looking at the revenue that our county is pulling in. And I think we have a couple of subject matter experts here that can really break down the revenue side of our budget before we start talking about the expenses, how we're going to spend our tax dollars. Um, and so, Mr. Brandon, our information czar,
Right.
he has been locked and loaded and prepared to talk about our excise tax that is was it and how that is going to be different from the impact fee that we had in place.
Right. So
Hold
we've had an, nope.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're probably gonna do it. I was gonna say, just in case nobody understands what those are.
Yes. Yes. So we historically have had an impact fee. And the impact fee is something that is paid by new development, residential development. So anytime a home is built, or if there's an apartment building that has 200 units, each unit has an impact fee, and the fee is collected by the county. It basically is a tax, and the county spends that money on the upkeep of roads, schools, and rec and park related items. And so it's basically a way of generating revenue for the county so that as people move into the county and build homes, they are helping to pay for the necessary upgrades that their presence in the county, will put strain on a certain system. And so we need to upgrade.
Only those three things.
Only those three things. Yeah,
the impact
exactly.
can only fund those three things.
Yes, so only on schools, roads, and rec and park related items. A couple years ago, the commissioners put a piece of legislation forward that got passed through Annapolis that authorized them to change the impact fee to an excise tax. And the thinking behind it was to expand the revenue that they could make on the commercial side, because the impact fee was only charged for residential development, whereas the excise tax would be charged also on commercial development, so your shopping strips and fast food chains and stuff like that. So that's where we're at now. The commissioners have a an excise tax study that was completed with recommendations. And so we have a public hearing coming up on the excise tax to see what the public feels about the rate that it should be. Now, I will say the excise tax, in addition to charging commercial development this tax, they also are planning to add public safety as a fourth receiver of whatever revenue comes in from this tax. So it would be schools, roads, and parks and rec, and public safety as well. I could really go deep into this, but just one more point to throw out there: the impact fee, if you look at what it has been historically charged per home, it's only been a few $1,000s. The recommended excise tax is, I think, like in the low to mid 20,000s, 23, 24,000 per residential unit. And then I think it's slightly lower for commercial. And there's different ways that they assess this. They can assess it by square footage of the space, which is what they did with the impact fee. But basically, this public hearing that's coming up is supposed to help them make a decision about what exactly to put in place with the excise tax, the amount, how they charge it, and what uses the revenue can fund.
They and I think the problem that the commissioners faced first and foremost was when the task force came back with their explanation of how the excise tax was working. They presented it was originally supposed to be a concept between the impact fee and the excise tax, was intended to be revenue neutral, meaning they would have the same amount of money brought in, just changing the word and the uses of the money. But the people that came in to explain it, they presented a far more financial rosy picture, raising the excise tax, which would have generated it would have been like a 350% increase over the impact fee. 350%. So I think they kind of settled it down. Hopefully they settle that down and go back to revenue neutral. That's just my thoughts. But
yeah, and there's a lot of different things that play here too. With the impact fee, a couple years ago, they did a study on it, I think in 2017 or 2018, and decided to raise the impact fee. At the time, that study showed that the current impact fee was like maybe $4,000 or $5,000. It really should have been $20,000 to $25,000, and because of that, we were very far behind in the revenue that was being collected for the impact fee, and couldn't keep up with the amount of growth that the county needed to serve its residents. So what the commissioners did is they decided to increase the impact fee, but roll out the increase over the course of 5 years, from 2017 or 2018 to last year, or this year actually. And that would help blunt the impact of the impact fee so that it wouldn't be, a shock to the system and have that 350 or 400% increase,
Right.
which is what would have happened last time as well. And so they're basically in the same situation now, where they're trying to assess what is the right number here. One thing I will throw out is that I think that based on having looked at the presentation for the excise tax proposal, it definitely is not feasible to increase the residential side by $15,000 or $18,000 in one fell swoop. Like, that just is crazy to me. So they're going to have to find a happy medium there. But I actually think that the commercial rates are pretty low. And some of them are, like less than $1 per square foot. And so I think, depending on what type of commercial development you're talking about, those rates need to be looked at a little bit more. Because if you're talking about, something that isn't really going to create a lot of demand on our infrastructure, then maybe they shouldn't pay it as high of a fee. But if you're talking about something that, is like a movie theater, for example, that is going to draw people regularly, that are going to be using our roads, using our parks, things like that, even from outside of the county, all of these things need to be considered when you're talking about commercial development and what kind of draw it has for our area.
I kind of agree. I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and one of the things we talked about was like, I didn't pick up on the fact, like an office building, right? Everybody thinks, what do you need an office building for? Well, an office building is a relatively low impact on because you're generating income, and there's employees that are going to have jobs, and those
Right.
jobs are going to be feeding more than they're going to be taking away in many cases, hopefully, right? So, I mean, it was definitely a debate that I was like, that makes more sense once I hear about it. Because I was like, any commercial building, I get it. That was the argument over like not just single out 7-Elevens, but like 7-Elevens versus, an office building, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely there needs to be some real understanding of what those impacts are and what benefits they bring to the community. Right.
Yeah. And we have to remember too that, and I think Commissioner Colvin actually said this during the presentation for the excise tax proposal, but the commissioner sold the bill that allowed them to change from an impact fee to an excise tax. They sold that to Annapolis as like, hey, we're going to do this, but this is going to be revenue neutral.
Right.
And so we're not going to be cranking up this fee because we're changing the name of it in a little bit of the behind the scenes workings about what it can be applied to. It's going to be revenue neutral, at least on the residential side, because the impact fee didn't charge commercial development anything, and the excise tax, as we said, would. So it'd be interesting to see what the final result will be and just how revenue neutral that stays.
Yeah.
So how do y'all think that this is going to impact development that we're trying to draw down here?
Okay, I think
Chris, you go first.
No, I mean, one of the things that I said from the very beginning is very important to understand is, it's all a numbers game in the grand scheme of things. The people that support it are going to say, the surrounding counties, it's much lower. It's not, we have one of the lowest impact fees. But we also, St. Mary's County is the only Southern Maryland county that has a 1% transfer tax on real estate. So anytime to the county, anytime a property is sold, it's a 1% transfer tax. And that Charles does not have that. Calvert does not have that. And they have other fees, and I get it, right? It's all about how you work, how the numbers facilitate one another. But I think ultimately, I don't think it's going to affect development really significantly one way or another. I think it could generate some significant income, especially if we get a good project in that has a lot of houses in it. Could generate a lot of income for the county, which could provide great services and better roads and better public safety, all the things that we want.
You don't think it'll impact us on the commercial side, being that we talk about all these amenities and everything that we're missing? and things that will need to be developed here in the near future.
I mean, I worry about that a lot, don't you? I mean, like I see, like, I've said this before. I don't know if it was here, but like I mean, I look at Wildwood, the shopping center in Wildwood, right? I mean, it appears to be dying on the vine, right?
Yeah,
You know what I
man.
mean? Like, and do is that because big boxes, big stores don't want to come here because it's too expensive? Is there too many fees, too many things like that? Is it too hard to fight development? Is it too much NIMBYism? Not in my backyard. Is there too much of that? And those businesses, the very people that protest and they want to Whole Foods and they want to and all those nice stores, they're the very ones that protested when they try to come to a region. Like we talked about the Chick-fil-A up in Charlotte Hall, right? I mean, so there's a definite impact that this money's it's going to be viewed as an impact. I don't think it's going to deter anyone. That's not really what deters the businesses from coming, I don't think.
Yeah, I think going back to the transfer tax for a second, they actually did when the commissioners in the finance department were calculating the impact fee each year, they took whatever the impact fee total number was. So say it was $20,000. Then they also took out of that the average amount of a transfer tax charged, which is based on the average home value. So they would take that off of the 20,000. So let's say it was for 350,000 is the average home value. Let's say so $3,500 transfer tax comes off of the 20 grand. Then they also take off the amount of money that we have out there in bonds or debt to finance our CIP projects. And so that comes off. And so it drops something from like 20 grand down to 4 grand. So there's a lot of math that goes into this. But they make a point to say that the transfer tax is taken out of that because they don't want people to think that the county is taxing them multiple times on the same thing, even though that kind of is what's happening. So interesting little tidbit there. But I do want to talk to you, Chris, about new developments in the county, because I wanted to get your ideas on the way that they structure the impact fee. So the impact fee, the lower, smaller your home was, the less amount of impact fee you paid. So if your home was under 1,200 square feet, you only paid an 80% of the impact fee total. And they did this thinking that it would encourage developers to build smaller and more affordable homes. But I don't see really where that has happened. And so, everybody knows construction is expensive these days. So is there a way for the commissioners to use the impact fee, or now excise tax, to encourage that type of building here?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit. I mean, the big problem is that it hasn't made a change in that type of housing, and I think there's probably room for that to be discussed and figure out if there are I think it's going to take more than the impact fee adjustment to motivate that type, because as we talked about, everything's expensive to build anything, right? Like it's not just the impact fee, it's going to cost thousands of dollars just to put the shovel in the ground. You know what I mean? And when we do that, we need to understand that maybe there's tax incentives and things of the sort that we can generate for people that are going to build more affordable, for the lack of whatever that word is, right? More with a more affordable product, right? And maybe that's in line with a bottom third of the median income or some median household income, whatever that is, whatever that number is. We just have to be creative and come up with solutions for that, because right now we talked about it. There's starter homes and first time homes. It's difficult out there. You know, when I see a first time home buyer is buying a $380,000 house here, I told you my first house was $89,900.
But you're old though. You're old.
I'm old. Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize, gentlemen. Somebody came to my door in the middle of this, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, I think my son let some stranger in my house out there.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the commercial side of the excise tax. I honestly don't think that it's going to slow commercial development down. I think we should have been charging um, some type of fee for commercial development because it does create a strain on our services, particularly if they need a police or fire response. That's public safety. Um, and the way, I've been doing some research into commercial property that's for sale here locally, and some of the marketing material that's used, talks about how, at least in California, Lexington Park area has one of the highest incomes in the state, and look how many people there are to support your business. And so I feel like as long as those, statistical points remain true and marketable, that commercial development is just going to continue down here the way it has been.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean,
except
what
for
about?
go
Well,
ahead.
I guess I'm thinking about the like the issue that you just brought up about Wildwood. I mean, Wildwood is not the only commercial space that appears to be full of vacancies. So I
Right.
mean, I'm a little worried that you may be correct, Brandon, and commercial development may continue. But I'm like, we're not backfilling with
No.
with the ones that we already have in place.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, I see a lot of that stuff, and I think the same thing. I'm like, I worry about like, how we're not backfilling it, right? What are we doing with it? Those businesses aren't willing to realign themselves or rethink themselves and come up with a new strategy for using,
Mhm.
look, a building isn't a building anymore, right? It's a great concept when you think about schools are a great example. There was a school, an elementary school in Calvert that was near me when I was really young, and it was an elementary school, and then they closed the elementary school. Now it's a great community center, right?
Yeah.
And it was and it still is a great community center, but they couldn't make it a school again.
Mm.
Today's world, they couldn't make it a school
Right.
again. So I just think we got to really rethink these businesses and what they're doing with the buildings and what they can do with them.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we're going to be struggling with commercial. I don't think it's going to get. I think we got a little bubble outside of COVID that kind of, I hate to use that word too, bubble, but it's like the real estate agent's nightmare.
It's going to burst.
Yeah, it's gonna burst. It's gonna burst. Right? There's this commercial thing that you got to watch out for, and I don't know. I watch the commercial real estate a lot now, and see what's new and what's not, and it's
Yeah.
so it's a challenge. But residential is a real problem. We already know that's a problem. We need more residential housing and more affordability in residential housing. Right? We do.
Yeah.
That's
But,
a fact.
here's something I'm wondering too about the commercial side of things. I know the county offers, incentives, whether it's through tax incentives or helping with grants or whatever, for businesses to revitalize old spaces.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
is there a way to kind of, use that idea and that method and couple it with the excise tax and say, hey, the excise tax maybe is a little higher for commercial than you see elsewhere, but we have these incentives for filling older spaces so that, here's how you offset that. Go fill an older space instead of building something new.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. And some places across the country are turning, shopping centers into condos, you know what I mean? Like old
Yeah.
malls. And you think about it, the roads have already been addressed. The infrastructure's really already there.
Yeah.
These are real reasons that those are good, positive. I mean, if somebody turned some of that space in Wildwood into, some sort of residential commercial mix, I think it could be really impressive,
The one of the things that the state does, they have a program that they've been running for the past couple of years called Project Restore. Project
Mhm.
Restore, it there's a $2,400, I believe, 20 something like that. So there's a certain allotment for a 24,000. That's what it is. It's $2,000 a month. $2,000 a month um, allowance given to someone who fills a space that's been open for more than 6 months. So it's an application that opens every August. Um, at least for the foreseeable future, I think that to attempt to address some of these issues. So I know $2,000 may not be a lot for some of these larger ones, but I mean $2,000 for small businesses, that's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is huge, and could fill some of the smaller spaces for sure.
So
Yeah,
what we had to do is
I had
get our economic development team on top of that, because
Yeah,
we need them to help facilitate that process, because a lot of people don't even know that program exists.
we call it's funny because Maryland Realtors, I knew the name, I just couldn't went on the top of my head. I just looked it up while you guys were talking. It's called adaptive reuse. That's the terminology. It's adaptive reuse, or obviously repurposing, right? But there's definitely opportunities for that, and it's we got to, again, back to like, I feel like I always come back to this. It's like, we're smarter than this. Can't we figure this out? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we can figure it out.
Sometimes you come to the reality, maybe we're not that smart.
Well, we're all too easily distracted.
Would say that, wouldn't they?
That part.
That would testify to that anyway. Well, that's
all
good
right.
stuff.
Well, gentlemen, I definitely appreciate the insight on the excise tax and the impact fee. I'm sure that somebody's going to be begging you to talk about that again.
I'm sure we will. I think we're going to talk about the new subdivision next time too. I think that's a conversation we're going to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
and once again, we need to make sure that people know how to get in contact with us, so they can give us suggestions on some of the topics that we can discuss. We're not the only ones that are concerned, so other concerned citizens can send us information at SOMD concerned citizens at Gmail. So SOMD Southern Maryland concerned citizens at gmail.com.
Yep.
Yeah, we definitely love to hear, if there's a topic that we should cover, because there's always a lot going on around here.
That's for sure.
So anyway, until we hear from some people about some more topics, we're going to have to keep our thinking caps on, and we're going to make sure that everyone out there stays informed
and stays engaged
and stays empowered.
Love it. See you guys next time.
See ya.